Mr. Trump would crush efforts to slow it. And he is surrounded by China hawks who believe confrontation is the only way to preserve American dominance. Caught between a deal-making president and his warmongering officials, China could easily miscalculate over Taiwan with catastrophic consequences. Talk to me about how much less safe America is with that vision of the new global order.
America is much less safe right now. I think that this has always been shaped in the context of a political story. What's going to happen if he wins? This is a national security story right now. He is a threat right now. He is threatening people in America. He is validating our enemies. And he is the leader of what I've called the American insurgency. It's a social movement that seeks to reverse the election, overthrow the government, and install him as the leader. That is happening right now. Every day he's out in the streets. He's posting social media. He is disrupting our civilization. He is an immediate national security threat that the national security apparatus is thinking about. I think we look at this, what happens if he wins? What happens if he's out and doing this for the next 11 months? I think that is the more immediate threat. We've got to move that bar closer back because he's got, at the end of the day, millions of people who are angry with guns who will do what he says. And I think we have to approach it in that kind of framework first and most of all.
Amy brings up NATO. I think part of what Donald Trump did was to soften the ground for that not seeming like such a dangerous and extreme position, right? The fact that he came with this America First worldview, that he sold it to a lot of voters to go back to something that Matt Dowd was saying is, you want to know why the price of your eggs are so high? This other country over here. You want to know why? Because we're spending all this money doing other stuff in these other countries and we don't need to. And so he did a great job of conflating the role we play abroad with challenges, the lack of solutions to challenges that people find here, regardless of whether or not the dots actually connect. And so that seems to me to be part of the rhetorical challenge the Democrats are going to be up against going into 2024, which is you might want to say the stakes are democracy. But one, there's already a subsection of the electorate that has bought into Donald Trump's lie about America first. And secondarily, there's a portion of the electorate that has bought into the idea that the reason the economy is not as they would want it to be here at home is because of the efforts America is making elsewhere.
This all has to be simplified for the real.
Please, simplify
the real battlefield here is the few 100,000 independent, unaffiliated voters in maybe a dozen states. That's who we're talking about here. And it has to be simplified to, yeah, Biden might be old, and you might not love him, but at least he's not crazy and dangerous and going to blow up the whole world. Like, that's the argument they have to make to reasonable people who are somehow on the fence. And there are many of them. You know, 49% of this country is independent. 60% of young people are checking out the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. They don't want none of the above. The question is, how do you convincingly move those people to vote for Biden over Trump? That's the true political battlefield that determines everything else. And I think that's where the Democrats talking about NATO and talking about geopolitics, it's all too complicated. You got to simplify it. This guy is crazy, dangerous, and he's going to blow up the whole country. Or you've got the old guy who you might not like, but is going to keep things pretty stable.
The upcoming election and the fact that when you talk to people, people want honesty, they want decency. There are some core values that actually fly in the face of the extremism that we're seeing right now.
Yes. And like the earlier discussion, this is about national security. So Elon Musk is also a national security threat. He's a threat to the global security. He is cultivating, promoting, weaponizing this destructive behavior and hate that is ripping the country apart and ripping the world apart. And I think we have to put him as almost like a parallel agent of mayhem alongside Trump. Who would be third? I don't know, Putin, right? But our enemies celebrate this kind of environment, this kind of leadership. And someone like Putin, Hamas, they sit back and say, hey, give me more Elon Musk, give me more Donald Trump. This is great for their objectives. And I think that's how we have to frame this. Remember, Elon Musk also has a very cozy relationship with the government and the Department of Defense. I mean, we are reliant on Starlink. There are other ways that the U.S. government, and Biden in particular, can pull the plug on Elon Musk and on his companies and on all the other interactions he has with the American people. And I think this is time to ramp that up.
You're on the ballots in many of these states.
I always love how calm, cool, collected you are. Time is of the essence, to say the least.
I'm rooting for it. Right? I'm not a legal expert, but as an American, as a veteran, as a father, I am rooting for it.
As someone who sees this in the context of national security.
Ban him, block him, gag him, arrest him. I mean, what takes him out of this political equation and out of our national security environment is good for America. So I'm rooting for it, and I don't know where it's going to pan out, but I do think there's a powerful role for Republicans and independents to play in this entire conversation, in moving people, in influencing the public, and ultimately, if it goes to an election, election in having a determining factor there, too.
I'm going to take gag him to mean a reference to the multiple gag orders. Barbara McQuaid, Paul Reichoff, thank you both so much for joining us.